So now we've got this Elmet, and I had the Elford before, this is how I ended up on that page with Elford. Actually, I was going to do this first and then go on to Elford, so I'm going to go on to Elford in a minute. I'm going to put the Elford video after this one. So our area was Elmet. Now we've got this Brigid, which was more Cumbria and just into Scotland. Actually, Lanarkshire and possibly even Glasgow was Brigid. Now Elmet is definitely our area. And this is from 550 to 650. So we're looking at, this is meant to be the classical, Arthurian Dark Ages where not much is meant to be known. So I got sent over to Elford. That's the Welsh, supposedly, even though we're looking at sort of Anglo-Saxon period. Sometimes Elmed, and Elm, Elmhead, Elmed, Braintree, Elmet, Elmeet, the tree. You see, Elmet is kind of like, if you've got all the branches of the order meeting, that could be where they met. All the branches of the order could have met at Elmet. If they're all branched out at other places like Braintree or whatever, there's that. And then there's Elfed. It could all be fed. The roots, the branches of the trees could be fed from the roots, not unlike the stream forming up on the Pennines and then coming down through the channels and courses and forming the streams and river and going past the bridges, the elongations of hill forts, which are covering the next talk that I'm going to edit onto this. So it says the capital was Lodis and or probably Camberdenham, although, I don't think Camberdenham refers to Slack whatsoever. It's a large, it's the whole Vale of Kirklees. It has to be, because it's, they've got forts there and it's near Bending the River. I don't know why they're saying Slack. That's like saying, why did they build on that hill fort 50 years ago after Val had been excavating? In fact, that was slack. Building on there was slack. That was a slack move. Common land bridges. So Cumbric. So it was Celtic, but it was more of a Cumbrian Celtic. But if they're still speaking Cumbrian Celtic, then they haven't fully taken on the Roman language, which, they're still speaking Welsh in Wales and Scottish in Scotland. And, the Roman period, if they're not completely taken on Latin after 500 years, they've been doing quite well, haven't they? 550 to 650. Preceded by, so then it's turned into the Hen Ogledd. Oh no, it was Hen Ogledd before, sorry, and then it went into the Kingdom of Northumbria afterwards. Early Middle Ages. They're actually still building hill forts over in Ireland at this point as well. At this point, they're actually still building like hill forts in Ireland. Even though they've got places like Hadrian's Wall and York, the Roman parts of York, before the Viking parts. And the early Celtic Christianity. So, and we've got these two, this Gwallop ap Glenog. So this is I'm really interested in this because with the two L's, like Llandudno, Llanberis, I'm really interested in those words because I think it's like clan, isn't it? Like you've got clan. They say that it's not. They say that it means something else, but it does sound like clan when you say it. right? And a clan is a group of people. And if you had a village with people, and the villages weren't that big back then, so you know, when you've got Braveheart going around to see the next clan, effectively he's going to see the next village. And if the village is called Clan Eog, and that's the next clan, then it's Clan Eog, right? And then when he goes over to see another clan, it just happens to be another town or small village, and it happens to be called Clan Dudno. So if he ain't going to see the next clan, I don't know what he's going to see in. If you want to argue that with me, then you're welcome. But you know, you're not going to succeed, even if it means swan, pig, duck, egg, fried chicken, and a monkey, because it's Clan Dudno, and I'm not going to see the next clan in the next village. And if Clan Dudno ain't the clan in the next village, and it's called Clan Dudno or Clan Berris, and if it ain't Clan Berris, then my name's Pork Jester. You know, I'm the Batman. Heretics of Elmet. Heretic of Elmet. Wow. So we've got someone of Elmet now. Heretic of Elmet. So if Elmet's elf-fed, it's almost like the heretic of elf-fed, isn't it? Now, try saying that to a university professor when he's at a rave and he's had a couple of ecstasy tablets. The heretic of elf-fed. You know, that would be something to call Sasha, wouldn't it? Or Dennis McKenna. You know, when he's on an ayahuasca trip. You know, the heretic of elf-fed. You know, you need to get the right people together and have the right discussion. You know, because when you start saying things like this with the right people in the right room, like Dr. Gail Higginbottom and Howard Crowhurst. And then the prehistory guys are there. Then and then people start saying, "Well, yeah, you know, I don't think that is too far out." You know, that if there's Hugh Newman there as well, and then he's going, you know, he's like, you know, some pretty far out stuff there with the giants, but that is plausible. You know, then prehistory guys cannot say that we are. You know, there's some wild theories out there and we might be talking a lot of rubbish. It's like, heretic of Elmet, heretic of Elfed. The heretic of Elf-fed. Wow. You know? Have you ever been to see Fatboy Slim? You know, or to Ibiza and seen the heretic of Elf-fed? Or have you ever been to Stonehenge Summer Solstice and seen the heretic of Elf-fed? It might mean something and it could be significant play on language. Gwalog ap Claneog Clanberries. See, berries is like berries, isn't it? I know it's like Clanberries means Clanberries, whatever it means, but berries, you know, Clanberries. If there's anything close to berries, it's not Clanberries. Clandudno. We'll have a look at these anyway. So this first time I've looked at this, right? Gwalog ap Cleanog, Old Welsh. Gwalog, oh, Gwalog, Gael, Welsh, Gwalach. His father's name is spelled variously. Clinuach, and Clenach was a hero of the Hen Ogledd, but that's later, isn't it? Or was that Hen Ogledd? Was that the oh no, because later it was part of Northumbria, wasn't it? So that's before. He has long been considered a probable 6th century king of the sub-Roman state of Elmet. So they had guys there who were subordinate to the Roman state in Elmet. In Yorkshire, though some more recent scholarship would identify him more tentatively simply as king of the unidentified region in the north. So what happened to all those Celtic people, you know? They're doing that, you know, they're attacking, there's some nasty stuff going on at Anglesey. Very graphic descriptions of, you know, it's likely, very graphic, all that, you know, hands in the air and heretics running around. Didn't the Romans describe them as heretics? Didn't they? The Romans describe it in that Gallic Wars as the Druids were running around putting their hands in the air to the gods like heretics. That's how they describe it, whether or not they're exaggerating a lot or not, when they all got killed. Well, this is, according to the Roman accounts, they killed all the Druids, right? Because that's the way they went over. That's why they came over here, in order to establish the regime. It was a major part of the plan. But they left the various rulers as these client states. Now, we don't know exactly what got pulled to bits, if they pulled cairns to bits, if they pulled... We know there's only... Howard Crowers says there's only 10% left of what they were. You know, we've got some of those cairns remaining in Anglesey. They didn't destroy everything in Anglesey. They didn't destroy everything down south. Some little long barrows. Those might have been the ones, although you've got Hetty Pegler's Tuft, which is just out of Cirencester, and Cirencester had got a Roman amphitheatre around one of the old sites in the town, one of the henges. They didn't completely pull flatten Hetty Pegler's Tuft, maybe because it was a smaller village, less important. They didn't tear it to bits. This is why I'm starting to see they didn't get to Newgrange and Noath, right, or anywhere like that, to rip all those big ones to pieces. So what I think is, even though I think that I know that these are all prehistoric and Neolithic sites and things like that, but I still think that they were still important and celebrated, even if not used, you know, like, because now you've got old churches that are still there, and you still know it's like, it's an old church, and we've got new churches, right? But, you know, they still might have, to them, they might have been the old churches still, it's an old church, and it's still part of the legacy of that order. So if you want to try and remove the legacy of that order, you pull them to bits. Now, the ones that are more around the edges, farther out, may well have been, to them, considered as not quite as important as the main centres that were pumping out this stuff, you know. So if there was some major important sites more centrally, they likely were stripped to bits, I would have thought. And then what you've got left with is just the normal rulers like Catmandua and these other characters who were just the normal kings anyway. They weren't the specific religious order that was going to be there to wipe it out. Now, what terms and phrases and, you know, practices they did push out, obviously, were retained in Ireland and the far north of Scotland, and obviously to what other means and ways they could remember it. I'm not too sure what the Romans implemented in the regime, you know. Obviously, they didn't completely lose the language, but they're still using this. They granted them the Brigantes. They called them that. So the bit of evidence that I have to put forward is that they've got this term Brigantes. Now, if it's a brig house, right? Now, when you think of a brig, you kind of think of a brig, right? But if it's a bridge house, then it's an elongated house, isn't it? It's an elongation brig house. It's an elongation house, right? Now, I know you've got like a church. So basically, a church is an elongation, isn't it? But then you've got the tower on it. Now, in Ireland, they were knocking up those bell towers, which is an elongation in itself, a mast or tower going up. But then you had the congregation building, which was separate from the clog teach. So with the clog teach separate from the congregation hall, you know, then you ended up combining them together and become one building. But the design of the spiritual building, the church, it effectively it's long, isn't it? It's an elongation. It's got an elongation going up, and it's got an elongation going across the floor. Now, we know what they had, the obelisks like Rudstone and things like that. The stones, well, that's an elongation as well. So, you know, So obviously, you know, but the Celts were known for having roundhouses, right? They had roundhouses with the thatched roofs, but they also now when we know that the Saxons are more known for starting to have more of the long houses, you know, the long rectangular buildings. But it's the hill fort, long and narrow, elongation. So it's an elongation on the fort. So actually the hill fort it is effectively a bridge shape, you know. And then there's two of them. You've got Dunelm, and you've got you know, you got Castle Hill. Now the other site it actually is perfectly Liberty Cap shaped. Funnily enough, don't know what it was like before, but probably even more so. But you know that is somewhat of an elongation, but it's more round. But it's a lot more the type of I think it's a lot more like Old Oswestry, but a bit smaller. Could have been bigger. And we don't know if it actually had any fortifications on it. Would it have been worth, you know, if the Romans, you see, this is the thing, they set up York, didn't they? They set up York with Roman walls, right? Now they could have, if they wanted to completely flatten it, right, and set it up here and pretend that it was never there. But the thing is, by the time, you see, there is a river in Huddersfield, but it's not a massive one. If the Romans wanted to set up a massive city, right, they likely could find a better place, right? Because if it was, you see, the Druids are just the head of the Druid order, right? If the Druids are just the head of the Druid order and they're, you know, potting around sending stuff out to the rest of the order, right? Then it's not necessarily like the capital of a country, is it? It's just like a religious headquarters, and it's not necessarily everyone's not going to go there. Only the religious order is going to go there. Effectively, like Canterbury, really, you know, he's meant to be the head of the church, you know. So, you know, it's not a city for everyone. It's only headquarters for Brigantes. So, or if it's for the Druids, then you don't need to be next to a massive river. It's more important to be somewhere significant, like next to the if it's the moors, if the moors are more significant. So, you know, but when the Romans were going to establish a big city in the north, then they want to have it next to a better river because they like get the water from the river. So it's more effective to have it where York is. It's got like a better river, hasn't it? You know, is it the Aire or whatever it's called? I'm not quite sure. I think it is. So, you know. Now, to what extent they could have completely levelled that hill, I don't know. You know, was it like Old Oswestry and they wanted to disfigure it, and they made it into like a big burial mound to signify that it'd been, you know, that's it, done and dusted. You know, like we've buried them effectively, symbolically. You know, made it into a mound. I'm not sure, because there were some Anglo-Saxon burials as well, you know. They've got Anglo-Saxon burial mounds, so they're still doing burial mounds, you know. But there's some Viking ones as well. But they're not doing chambered temples, though. They're doing burial mounds, but they're not doing temples. That's the difference. But I think from Algeria, as I've said in some other talks, you've got the burial mound. This is a burial mound, right? Somebody's buried in it. It's got a circle, and then it's got the whole, you know, it's got the symbolic circular bit around it, and it's completely covered earth and mound. But then you've got the place where they go to that is shaped and sheltered, overhang against a wall where they do all the religious art, and then, you know, might get the sun shining on it, whether it's at night or day or when it's raining, and they feel comfortable there. And that's where you get all this, you know, they get the psychedelic art and everything in Algeria. So there's a place where they have the religious experience and artwork sheltered, partially undercover, which is not to be confused with the actual burial mound, right? But they both have a connection with going to the spirit world on the other side. because when you die, then, you know, they said that you go over to the other side, but you don't come back again. So that's the difference, you know. The place where they have the spiritual journeys and experiences, it's an experience you go into and, you know, come back from. So this is when now I think we need to make sure archaeologists are very clear on their terminology and not misleading us, right? Because some of these sites have been tampered with and changed. Some were completely filled in, some weren't. Some, like, you know, Bellsnap, West Kennet, are they exactly how that they really think it was? Was it open or closed? You know, was it completely sealed off? Did it have an entrance with a portal or not? Was it like Newgrange when, you know, they pull it out and close it, open it and close it? Or are they, you know, were people killed and put in there and then it closed up and sealed permanently because they didn't want them to use it anymore? And was it made to look like a burial or mound? Because they got the burials and mounds to be buried permanently dead, and they've got the places, temples, for religious experiences. Now, if you are there attacking Anglesey with Druids going around with their hands up to the heavens as heretics wandering around with women chasing around, and you are going to absolutely slaughter, kill, and wipe them out off the face of the planet of existence, what more fitting finale for them than, oh, they're your burial mounds, are they? They're your burial mounds, are they? They're your burial mounds. Are they burial mounds, are they? Burial Mount Temple, Burial Mount Temple. Right, I'll give you a fucking burial mound. Right, you know, right. Describe the Gallic Wars at Anglesey. You know, no blood splats emitted. Right, what happens next? Oh, right. Well, you like burial mounds, do you? Stick him in there. Right. Either A, tear it to pieces, or B, fill it in and block it off. And, you know, put a note on there. Varley, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This was filled in and sealed 3600 BC. Not, you know, at 59 AD when we slaughtered and killed them all. And, you know, here's a little grain of corn that I'll just slip in there from what I did find in 6000 BC. And if you're doing radiocarbon dating, that's not been invented yet. And, you know, I'll just put that into the test as well, you know. And it is a pork chop. In fact, I have 6 pork chops, 3 pigs, an eel, 5 gold rings, 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a professor in a pear tree as well. So there is that, you know. If you want to go down that line of inquiry, you are free to explore it. That's my opinion. You know, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong or not. Some more recent scholarship would identify him more tentatively as king of an unidentified region in the north, probably Ayrshire. What's the other one? Oh, the heretic of Elfed. The heretic of Elfed. You could say that Terence McKenna is the heretic of Elfed. You know, he fits the description. They could do that. You know, Dennis McKenna could write a book. You know, my memoirs of Terence are the heretic of Elfed. Heretic of Elmet or Ceredig. Ceredig. Let's have a dig here. Was the last king of Elmet, a Brittonic kingdom that existed in the West Yorkshire area of North England. Wow, Gaelic names with West Yorkshire, and it's got to do with Elfed. Bede records that Hilda of Whitby, born 614, well that's a fair bit after, isn't it? Member of the Dewan royal family, was taken to the court of King Ceretic after fleeing from the Northumbrian usurper Oh, he's another elf. Altherith of Bernicia, not Boudicea or Boudicea, Bernicia. Bernicia! Bernicia. Describes Seretic as king of the Britons, perhaps meaning just the Britons of that area. Perhaps, well, make your mind up. When Edwin of Deria returned to power in 617, Seretic was expelled, supposedly due to complicity in the poisoning of Hilda's father, and his kingdom was annexed to the kingdom of Northumbria. He's probably this heretic whose death is recorded in the Annals Cambria in 16, which should be corrected to 16, or soon afterwards. He is generally thought to be identical to Seridig ap Grenag. Seridig! Dig! Why is it that, like, Dig's on the menu for that hill fort getting, you know, something's going on with that hill fort, you know, it might have been dug out, and then we've got Seridig pops up, you know. Could it not be that when this Seridig was born, right, being of West Yorkshire, seeing that the Romans have gone, seeing that if I was born in West Yorkshire as a Celtic king or with Celtic heritage, even though we've got Anglo-Saxons mixing in now, and the Romans have gone, and we've got some vague stories and tales going round that people have been trying to remember from our history before the Roman conquest, and I wanted to try to remember what was happening or going on, and someone wanted to try and remember it in the history books to not forget it. You know, how would his mother try to remember his history than to name a son after something that would have happened? You know, maybe if it was still, you know, passed around in the story archives that, you know, the Ilfot got dug out or something like that, I might call him Seridig, you know. Maybe try digging around in that in the ground, see if you can find any flint heads. See if you can get the point. I'm digging for flint heads. I might find a couple of points under here. Like, is there any, you know, have you found any points in the ground? Yes, 3 flint heads. You know, well, I found the point here. Seridig. Now forget that one. Bridge that gap. Be decided perhaps Edwin Dira returned to power. He was exposed with next. He's probably which we corrected. He's generally thought to be identical to Seridig ap Gwalog, a man of the north, whose father Gwalog up Cleanog is associated with Elmet by poet Taliesin. Helmet. It's almost, you see, that the fact of that mound is actually, coming to think, if those helmets are legitimate, you know, not forgeries, there is that gold helmet which is like half a lemon, right? And effectively, it's not far off the actual freaking shape of that mound. It almost, not like a modern helmet now, like a motorbike helmet, right? Or not like, you know, those half a lemon shaped helmet, right, effectively is the shape of that mound. So, you know, effectively, helmet, drop an H helmet, is the shape of the freaking mound if it's a Celtic helmet, and particularly a freaking gold one that's half a lemon shape or like Liberty Cap. Now, that's not Druids though, but that could be because for the hill fort, for the ruler of the area, and then if you've got an order of long barrows for Druids, which happens to be big versions of the little ones that are scattered around the rest of the island in the far out reaches, which is more like bridges, elongations, which, you know, they didn't say long barrow, you know, they didn't have that long barrow word. So, you know, if the bridges, right, particularly also meaning to beam out as well, or project outwards, as well as being elongated, or bridge, then there's 2 or 3 bridges there, and if they live on them, the Brigantes live on bridges. Now, that might be something to do with the Druid Order being based there, but then also you've got the normal kings of the normal clan for that area, because you had the Druid Order's separate, but it can occupy or live in the same areas, because it's the same culture, and it's a Celtic culture, you know. So it would seem to me that, you know, it very well might be that those that Dunelm and Castle Hill are the elongations, the bridges, 2 bridges, and the actual other mound is the Helmet. Oh, and the whole county's called Elmet. But the Brigantes, they referred to the Brigantes as the people, didn't they? Right? They wrote on the map that these are the Parisi people. When the Romans wrote that map, right, and wrote it out, it was referring to the people who were occupying it. It wasn't a place name. It's like, these are the Brigantes people, right? It's like Liverpudlians, and then they put, these are the Parisi, right? And then like, these are the Dogledi or whatever. So they're the people. Elmet is the name of the place, isn't it? Now, the mound is like a Celtic helmet shape. So if that ain't the name, if the hill fort of that region ain't called fucking Elmet, then my name's not fucking Richard Kelly. And all Oswestry's got an hill fort for that region, and Maiden Castle's got a hill fort for that region. But the Brigantes are the type of people who are there, not the place. Now, if the people who are based at that place, the actual people, are referred to the Brigantes, the type of people, are the people of the bridges. So, you know, it might as well have been, you know, like mainly the Druid people who that's the type of people who were there. But the thing is that Drogheda is the bridge over the ford. Now, but still bridge over the ford still involves the word bridge. Why is it that Drogheda is a little bit like Druid? The word even Druid is a bit like Drogheda, and it's got a head in it, Drogheda. Like, I don't know, I don't care what it means in Irish or Gaelic. It's like the head. Well, that's what a helmet is. That's what helmet's on a head. So, you know, there's something in it. It's not, I'm not making it up for complete fantasy. There's enough there, like, you know, dot to dot, join the dots together, where there's like, all right, yeah, there's, you know, there's something in it. Particularly when people are going up onto the moors and writing, you know, cock-growing stone on one of the stones, which I'm not too keen on, you know. There's too much in it, you know, and I don't really want to have to be the person who does a talk on it, but seeing as though no one else is doing the talk on it, I'll have to, because people are writing this on Wikipedia, and it's there, you know. It's on Wikipedia, it's there, it's written down. I don't really want to have to talk about it, but, you know, it's no one else's, and I've got to try and stop Zilfort from getting absolutely, completely annihilated by stupid cafe when there are a lot better ideas to do with it. So, you know, if it pisses people off, people don't like the sound of my voice. I don't want to have to do the talk. But, you know, if I don't do the talk, then who's going to do it? So we're making some progress now. So this Elfed, you see, elf is meant to be Anglo-Saxon, isn't it, though? It's meant to be, I thought elfen was 11, had Germanic origins. But what it's saying is, it's saying Welsh language. So I don't know if there's some sort of crossover between Welsh and Anglo-Saxon, unless it means that the Welsh were using it. So on the map, it is 550 AD to 650 AD, which is just after when the Romans pulled out. This is the period that is kind of like enshrined and shrouded in mystery, really, and where all these, Arthurian legends and a lot of the Geoffrey of Monmouth writings sort of allude to. The only words we've got from the Romans, really, we haven't got any words from before the Romans, but we've got the Brigantes and the god Brigid, the Brig House and the place called Brig. But this language and wording, which is after the Romans, actually is Elmet, which is, it lends to helmet, Elmet. But then you've also got elm, which is a tree, which are like the branches of a tree. Now the two sites that I've been looking at, Cop Hill in Meltham, Dunelm, that's Elm. And it's the village by that hill is Helm. So that's directly relating to Helm, Elmet. You just drop the H, right? Also, we've got some wording for this Roundwood Hill, which I think is the Brig House. And there is written on that, on a map which I've put, that as a name of Upper Helm. Now, the only word we've got from the Romans is this Cambodunum, which I think it's nothing to do with just slack, and it's nothing to do with just one very, very localised place. It's got to be regional. It's the fort by the bend in the river. Now, Slack is nowhere near the main river, so it can't just be Slack. So it's Cambodunum is what they call the entire Kirklees, because it's the area of the fort by the bend in the river. Now, if you're going to mention any fort at all whatsoever, it's going to be a Celtic fort, particularly when you come over. So, and there is a fort by the bend in the river, which is Castle Hill, but also there is that Upper Helm, but there's also Dunelm as well. Now, the thing with Cambodunum is fort by the bend in the river. It like I've said in the other videos, it signifies like camel hump and carrying water, so like a hump or a bend, which is the shape of the camel's hump, the shape of a bend, and why the camel gets its name camel from Latin, what they called that animal. So, but you can have different types of camels. You can have them with one hump or two humps. So, I think, symbolically and as a reference term in there, it makes sense that there's two hills, two humps, and where the river bends. You got a couple of forts, maybe even more. In fact, it's ironic that Camelot is a lot of sounds like a lot of camels. Or when you're bidding on something in an auction, if you've got one item, you're bidding on one item. If you have a lot of items, it is a few of them. I've got a lot here, and we're going to auction a lot of books or whatever. And that's why we say I've got a lot of. If you say you've got a lot of a lot of anything, there's a lot of pasties or whatever, or there's a lot of onions. There are many, so there are. There are, if we've got recognition to those sites, there's a few of them. Now, but why am I talking about, Elmet when I've got this Elford? Well, it says that, on the other page that I've got open, it's Elmet, the Welsh is Elfed. For Elmet. So helmet, and elm, Elfed. Now, to me, that's like elf and fed. Elf fed. Now, we know that in the Germanic Anglo-Saxons, elves are elves, because elves are creatures in tales and magic tales and folklore. But elf is also 11, which is 2. So, you know, that's unusual when there's 2 or more hill forts as well. 11. Now, although 11 is actually many, but there's 2. It's 2. To write 11, it's 2 lines, isn't it? But you got this fed part, you know, elf fed, almost like feeding elves with whatever you're going to feed them with. It also sounds like elf head as well, doesn't it? Elf fed. In our accent, elf fed, elf head, elf fed, elf fed. Now the thing with Elmet, you've got Elmet, but then you meant to have the H on helm, because you got helmet, but they dropped the H, so there's like a helmet. And then I've got that video when I'm going to all the, you know, the lemons and the pips and the lemons and like elm, a tree, like the branches of a tree. I mean, you've got that place in Essex called Braintree, haven't you? You know, so there's all that. So, you know, it seems to me like, you know, it's. I mean, elf fed. If we're gonna go with any theory of, like I said, with the Liberties, then, you know, if you're talking about Marsden Moor, what she's got another big long barrow, it's actually like, you know, in season, it would be a living monument, you know, a growing, living monument on the moors and on the surrounding area. And then you've got these other 2 smaller ones in formation coming down from that West Nab Ridge as the trickles of water, almost like the branches of a tree, the shape of the branches of the tree, you know, branches out, you know, also like the word elm, like an elm is a tree, almost like all of the branches of the separate streams as well over the moors come and form together into the main trunk of the river, then flow past the Meltham Cop, Dunelm, and then past Castle Hill, and then straight past the Brighouse. So the river's going straight past these 3 forts, and then it bends round through Murfield, and then off to, you know, through Wakefield, and off to you know, Goole, and then Hull. And you can actually turn right at Goole, and you used to be able to, back in the prehistoric times, you know, depending on how long we're going back to Neolithic, maybe you could actually sail on one of those shallow boats. You know, you could get to the Nottingham Caves all in one connection, which is not significant enough when you say, oh, well, Robin Hood's grave, there's something to do with Robin Hood in our area because he's got his grave there. You know, it's almost like saying, oh, well, if you shoot an arrow and Robin Hood shot an arrow from his last bow. I mean, you could almost say, theoretically, you know, symbolically, you could drop a paper boat in the river at this Brighouse place and it could float all the way on the river. You know, if you had a little toy boat, you could chuck it in there, and if it kept on floating, you know, and not obstructed, it theoretically could float. And if it turned right when it got to Goole, it theoretically could end up at the Nottingham Caves, you know, if it was all connected. So that is something that to think about. But the fact that De Lacy refortified Castle Hill and changed and put those fortifications in with the bow at the front, the bow pointing to the left towards, you know, where Robin Hood's grave is, when it was the Long Barrow Hill Fort was aimed straight at Camberdonen, which is only 3.5 kilometres, which is a distance that hill forts are known to be apart from each other, like Sisbury Ring and Shanktonbury Ring. We know that. Well, that's hard evidence of hill forts being in that range of distance, proximity between each other. You know, so, but this Elford, I didn't really know that our area was called Elford. Elford. And that's in this Arthurian period, you know. But you've got like Alfred, haven't you? You know, Alfred. And in fact, Alfred's only a bit of a slight change in tone from Elfred, didn't it? Alfred and Elfred. But the thing is, if this is a thing, right? So the only words and terms we've got are the Brigantes and the Brighouse previous, and then obviously there's the Romans are here for quite a long time. You know, what is it, 500 years, something like that, and that's quite a while. And then, you know, how much of they didn't get right up into Scotland properly or into Ireland. You know, how much of they've made this Druid culture illegal and the whole religion. So, you know, what's actually happening and going on in this Brigantes and Elmet area over those 500 years, and what's happening over in Ireland and Scotland with building Hadrian's Wall. But then the Roman Empire ends up collapsing and then pulling out. Through all that, Christianity is not illegal anymore, and Christianity has been spreading and growing, and it has ended up actually merging with that culture. And it's quite, you know, obviously, when the Romans first came over, Christianity was illegal, but by the time the Romans leave, then it's kind of taken off and merged in. So with all the Arthurian stuff, we've got a lot of Christianity and Celtic, the Druidry merged together. But yet in the Arthurian legends and the tales, like Geoffrey of Monmouth, he doesn't really talk about Christianity like that. It's more focused on these knights, the Green Knight, and, you know, Guinevere, and the sword in the stone, and then you've got Merlin, the magician. You've got magician characters. You've got these wizard and magician characters, but they're referred to as magicians, which is more a romantic way of expressing the Druids in a way. But all around this time is meant to be, you know, it's not that far off when St. Patrick's going over to Ireland. So the names, you know, we don't exactly know. I mean, also it's like Elmet sounds like helmet as well, doesn't it? Which is kind of full on conflicting confrontation. I don't think the Romans are telling you everything they want you to know, because they're wanting to eradicate and defeat the Druids, so they're not going to tell you any useful information or anything to help remember them or honour or commemorate it whatsoever. It's left out on purpose. Now the thing is, you know, what is here? We've still got this term, Elfed and Elmet, which is still existing after they've pulled out. So this is way after, you know, 400 or 500 years after all this fighting. You know, they're recording battles, you know, whether it happened like that or not. At Anglesey, they're recording they're putting all the gore in there. They're playing it up for all this gory Druids putting their arms to their hair and everything like that. He gives this great graphic account of Anglesey, but when they're giving the accounts for going to see Queen Cardamom Dua, it's all negotiations and all this and that. Right? But what is in... They claimed the Druid stronghold was in Anglesey, you know, but... And they didn't get into Ireland when you've got, you know, you got bigger monuments in Ireland, you know, like Newgrange and Knowth, which is significant. But, you know, in Anglesey, there are quite a lot of, you know, ancient sites, cairns, chamber temples, and things like that. But there doesn't seem there's no mention really of West Yorkshire. Now we don't know whether what actually happened and what the Romans did know or didn't know, what they knew when they was here. But they ended up setting up York, but they didn't set up York in the middle of this Elmet place. They set it up at York. So they don't end up building the Roman main fortress or camp here. Now, whether that's because they don't want to acknowledge the significance of here or not, you know. But what is here? Well, we've got those sites. And the layout of it and the structure of it is, there's a lot of them. And it's the lot, isn't it? You know, we've got a lot of sites in close proximity. And it's the geographical position in a good central position, you know. And when you just look at that word elf-fed, elf-fed, I mean, but he's saying Welsh language. But, you know, they're saying that Elfin is Saxon. But that's the period we're looking at, isn't it? After the Romans pull out. So, you know, if it's a Welsh language, and if it, you know, goes back to before the Romans, why are the Romans calling it the Brigantes? Which is, you know, and after the god Brigid and, you know, beaming out, you know, forming a bridge. And also, that's the thing. I've just sort of kind of... This has taken me a while to realise. No, I've just clicked now. And that took me a while. So, the actual long barrow is like a bridge, isn't it? Because, what is a bridge? You know, if you've got a bridge, like, alright, so a bridge, the shape of a bridge is... literally, you know, it is long, like a pier, right? Now, I mean, I should have realised this before, but I've only just seen it now, that word, because when you think of a bridge, it goes out into water or something. So, when you're throwing around the long barrow word, like 2 words, long barrow, right? And that's our language. But, you know, if it's just, I mean, what is a bridge? I mean, you're building something that's elongated. It's an elongation, isn't it? Now, that word now has opened the keyhole for me in my mind, because I was staring at something like dumbstruck, and now I'm like, well, not dumbstruck, but it's just like, oh, yeah, you know, well, I knew it anyway, but it's just kind of like, shed a little bit more of a deeper realisation, because you think of a bridge has to be sort of like, you know, free floating, or it goes from one point to another point, but you have to get over, like, you know, the bridge, like Drogheda is the bridge over the ford. So you've got one bank on one side, the other bank on the other side, and then the river, and then you have to cross it. So you build a wooden bridge. Like, the wooden bridge itself is an elongated thing, but it's kind of like suspended. Usually you think of the bridge is suspended in the air, right? With a land point at one side and a lamp point at the other side. So it's free float. Well, in the centre of it, you usually think of floating. Then when you think of a long barrow, though, it is elongated, but it's... the centre of it is not hollow. It's all filled in. But if you think of that term, so bridge. If you just think of, okay, what do they mean when they say that? Well, as you're walking on a bridge, it's narrow and long, isn't it? So like that is like literally the top shape of a long barrow. It's long and narrow. So, you know, the bridge, the Brigantes, is almost like long barrows. You know, they might not call them long barrows. You know, we don't know what the Celts called them, because they've never written anything down. We call them barrows, like Barrow in Furness. We call it a barrow, right? So, I mean, the Welsh might have certain words for hills and barrows and things like that. But we've got a Welsh name here. It's Elfed and Elmet, right? And we have got the word. It is a Welsh. It is an old... Well, the Romans were saying Brigantes, but where have they got that from, you know? That was knocking around. So, you know, Brigid is the Celts called that god. They had 3 main gods, and it was Brigid. And then that's where the Saint Brigid came from. So it is a Celtic word, bridge. Bridge is a Celtic word, Brigid, which is, you know, for elongated. So how do you know that the Brigantes didn't refer to what we say as a long barrow? We say that if they might say that's a bridge, which is like a pier, really. And where do you invent pier from? You know, it goes out on the water. But what goes out on the water? An elongation that can be walked on the top of. Doesn't matter whether there's water under it or not. You got the Cranogs had elongations going out to the Cranogs over the water. It's a Cranog. It's a house built on the water with a wooden bridge going out to it. But it's an elongate. It's a narrow elongation, right? Now, if you've got a hill fort with water around it, it's effectively like it's on a lake, isn't it, you know? You could have a walkway going out to it or just go out to it on boats, you know? And those, at the end of the day, those style of boats that they are using and that dug up in Ireland are elongated, structured hulls. You know, well, we got the name hull, you know? So they're riding around on elongations, which are like little bridges. I mean, you could even say, before you even design a bridge and invent it, right, what is a boat? A boat's a floating bridge. What is a boat? Well, it's like a bridge, but it moves around. It doesn't stay in one place. Now, if you get a boat and an elongation of wood, right, and you sit it on the water and you tie one side of it to one place and it's just long enough to go across, you know, 8 meters or whatever, and you tie it to the other side, what is it? It's a boat. I've made a bridge. Well, it's a boat. Well, yeah, it's a bridge. It's a bridge boat. Fuck me. It's a bridge boat. So, you know, it's this elongation. Now, the thing with Welsh and Celtic is that we don't have that language anymore here in England. The Welsh have still got it. The Scottish have got some Gaelic and the Irish have. But what you find with the Welsh is that language has language to describe things and terminology, but what you find is that because it's an old language, they don't have a lot of new words, right? Because they didn't have helicopters back then. So I've been to Wales for work and I'm sat, you know, in an office or whatever, and I'm sat waiting for someone. And, you know, if I'm working and then they're speaking in Welsh, right? And I can't understand Welsh. So they're chatting away, you know, like, bada, you know, and whatever. And then they're speaking to each other. I can't understand them because it's Welsh. And then you'll hear them say helicopter, right? Because they don't have a word for helicopter. Because it's a modern word. It's only just been invented. So that's what the word is, helicopter. Now, as these languages, you know, as more things are being invented, you know, many things were invented and brought in by the Romans, so you won't have a Celtic word for that. And then you could either use the Celtic word for something or the Anglo-Saxon word or the Roman word, so you've got a choice of 3, and then they get abbreviated and changed or mixed up. This is why you end up with, you know, mast, pier, whatever. Well, you know, how can I describe a mast, a pier, and a bridge in one word to someone, right? In one word. So this is a game, right? So, right, like, you know, I spy with my little eye. What is that, right? Oh, it's an elongation. So you're walking down the road, someone's got a skateboard. So if I went back in time and I could only have one word to describe a few different things, right? A lot of things, and I've only got one word. So we're in a room, right? And, you know, pretend if you're in caveman times, right? So if you're in caveman times, but somebody pulls out a skateboard, and then you might go, oh, elongation, right? And then someone might, you know, pull out a long pole, and you go, oh, elongation, correct, on both instances. And then they might pull out a sword, and then you go, oh, elongation. I just correctly described all 3 objects, right? Elongation, well done. Now, that is a language that is not as diverse. So to add more diversity and complexity to the language, we can have new inventions, new terms, and create additional language and context laid onto it. And then we've got, you know, pole, you know, then we've got skateboard or just board, and then we've got, you know, mast, whatever. We're adding more words in, you know. But one word could be a describe all word, you know, and it's correct. So this is evolution of language, you know. So I think that particularly when also, you know, that's it really, you know. And the thing is, I really want to find this TV programme. They've got this TV programme, and it was, I don't know if it was BBC or Channel 4 or whatever, but it was in the, it wasn't Antiques Roadshow, but it could have been Antiques Roadshow, but or Country File, but they were talking about, they were in a house and they were looking at some objects, and someone had this old, I don't know if it was a grave or this old inscription on this stone or something like that, and it was written in Latin from around the time the Romans came over, and then we'd started picking it up. And he was saying that this is like a poem, and it's written in Latin, but it's got artistic and creativity in it, because if you read it backwards, it says something else, or if you read it forwards, and then in it has got other meanings and words in it, almost like when you're filling a crossword in, right? That sort of thing. What he said, this television presenter, he said that the Welsh people, when they picked up Latin, were very adept at playing around with it, and this is what he said, they were more creative and playful with it than actually what the Romans were when they were in Latin, because the Celts used it forwards and backwards, and sort of when you're going to commit something into an inscription, you can, it's like when you do a painting, right? I'm going to set this out and I'm going to make it a little bit, it's going to be like a masterpiece or a piece of works, and if you're going to go to all that trouble to inscribe it in stone, he makes, he has it so it's diverse, more diverse. So, and that's a little bit like the Book of Kells, really, whether you think it's genuine or not. It's got symbology, pictorial illustrations, illuminations, that visual aspects to them can have meaning and reading, and it's got letters and writing, and it can be interpreted in different ways, turned upside down. It can mean one thing, and then you turn it around the other way, and it makes a perfectly intelligible picture the other way around, like some of those plates in there. And that's what he was getting at in this program, and I wish I could find that program and edit it in there, because it was it's an important program when you get into the language, like when you read Elfhead, he's an elf head, but he's elf fed, but it's also like Alfred, but then we've got this term, it's related to the helmet, to the helm. But then we've also got the tree. Now, when you put a helmet on, your head's inside it. So you've got have you got anything to do with an elm that's like an elm in your head? Well, if you think of that place in Essex, the old name, that comes from the old. Braintree is an old place with an old name. It was like Braintree. So when they referred to what's inside a helmet, when you're wearing it, like in your head is a brain. They use the term tree because they referred to it. They've got a place called Braintree. So yeah, I think that it could be that they could have referred to the long barrows as bridges. They might have had that word for it, Brigid. It's but then you've got the pier aspect to it. Doesn't necessarily have to be on water, does it? The word pier actually comes from, the thing with the word pier as a walkway, we also understand the word now. We understand it. Don't start flicking through the dictionary to tell me I'm wrong. That when you're going to peer at something, it means to look. Now, I can say, the guy peered out of his window. Now, when I say the guy peered out of his window, you know what I mean, because you know that it means peered, to peer, right? So if you say that it's got nothing to do, you'll go onto Facebook and you'll say, oh yeah, it's like peer, and so what's it got to do with, it's got nothing to do with looking. It means to go out over the water on a bridge. Well, why do we say peer through the window then? Where did it come from? It's like I didn't. You know, it's like some people like say that. Well, I'm trying to make it up now. Well, I'm not making it up. Someone else made it up, but a long time ago, maybe that long ago. You know, so to peer at something, and to if you're peering out, it's usually you're looking from. If you're on a pier, you're looking out from the bridge or elongation. So surely that's looking out from being on the elongation, particularly if it's a long barrow or a big long barrow or a little one. And this is another thing you can peer into. You can peer into somewhere. You can peer into. I peered into the shed through the window. Now we're putting it the other way, peering outwards, peering inwards. Now, if you go to the smaller long barrows that have got chambers in, you might be having a look inside it. And you might even go into one in the pitch black, and you might be, elf-fed, and you might start peering into your own imagination and mind if you're going on a trip. So, there's that as well. Now, I don't need to really... to me, it is, I don't need to argue with an archaeologist, or I don't need to argue with any professionals, because if they want to try and, talk that down, then they're just being stubborn, because, and it's self-explanatory, that's what it is, Unfortunately, there isn't that many people talking about it, and I don't know why that is, because they don't want to. Not allowed or whatever. I don't really want to be the only person talking about it. But then again, that's like Howard Crowhurst says, it's not polite or whatever, but not polite to who? That's the thing. Is it not polite to Pope Francis, or is it not polite to Howard Crowhurst, or is it not polite to, who is it not polite to? That's the thing.